Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. And keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence. Put in the work for yourself and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy.
All right, folks, here we are on Monday, January 8th. We're going to take a look at Sava today. So I had a request to do this chart, so came and took a look at it, and gappy. But that can be a good thing. Obviously, this big gap down here, this day where it dropped over 15%, pretty quickly filled that. And then we got a little gap here, down over 10% this day, leaving the gap from about 26.27 up to 27.34, just because it filled it with that wick a little bit. So there's a chance, it might still sort of treat the gap here at about 25.85, but again, because it partially filled it, the following day I stuck it there for now. And interestingly, there's this uptrend support, which, this is kind of, I would count this as nothing basically, because this is just sort of like a setup and a single confirmation, but then it got a huge amount of distance from it. But then the interesting thing, what we always look for on these trend lines, is big, strong downward motion, and then it sort of started to curl, stabilize a little bit, and it banged right off of there again. So I'm going to put it there for now. We'll see if it holds up or not, or if it even comes into play again. I don't know if it'll get some distance from this in the near future, if it'll sort of sidestep into it or come down and bang into it again. But certainly an interesting trend line and level to see what it does there. Now, if it pushes, the first level that I'm just keeping here is the entry point 26.27, and then the fill at 27.34. If it pushes through there, things might get a little sticky around 29.30. I try to keep the chart pretty clean, meaning I didn't put in a ton of additional levels, just because it gets cluttered very quickly. But probably something like the nearest one in that I actually think is a thing, 24.22. So if we can continue to build over 24.22, that might give it sort of a little bit of a springboard or a baseline from which to work. But again, these ones felt a little stronger to me, so I kept them on and left off the 24.22, which is a little bit more questionable in my mind, but it is the nearest in one at the moment. Now, if it comes down, the uptrend support, obviously, that we just spoke about, and then 22.79, looks like it's historically been relatively strong to me, and 20.66. Again, it's going to be some sort of micro levels in there, but I was not wanting to clutter. So, on the ThinkOrSwim side of things, now if we just sort of zoom in here, we have this trigger. While the price was hugging the mid-range of the channel, it's exactly the sort of my most ideal, my favorite setup, if you will. And then it fired, and that pushed it up out of the channel. And then, like we were just talking about, we had the big drop, stabilizing here on the lower mid bound of the channel. So it didn't need to stretch all the way toward the lower bound of the channel. So potentially a good sign there for the bulls. We'll have to see what it does now that it's trying to reclaim the mid-range of the channel, right? But sometimes when it sort of pins to the mid-range, I don't know if I have a great example right here, but sometimes when it pins to the mid-range, it does have sort of like a little bit of an up and a little bit of a down. It's not like it just, magnetizes itself right on top of the mid-range of the channel and doesn't move. It's sort of slightly above, slightly below. And to me, this could be, we'll see how it takes shape, this could be a slightly below situation. Maybe it'll go slightly above, and who knows. But for the time being, bearish momentum obviously picking up even while this is climbing back toward the mid-range. So that's something to sort of be aware of. Is there more bearish momentum that's going to need to be exhausted before it can stabilize or climb any further? That's just something, that I'd maybe look for. And if not, I would expect at some point to get some yellow candles put in here on the histogram. But this is showing, like I said, for the time being, just climbing. So, and still playing out this fire here, like I said, it brought us way up here and then retraced most of those gains. And now the question is, is it going to re-trigger and refire and stay around the mid-range? Is it going to climb again and sort of play out additional volatility, based off of the trigger fire, or is it going to drop and have this be like sort of the initial move was the counter move, and then the real move is going to be this sort of drop? We'll see. It's always sort of like a fork in the road at the mid-range. There's sort of like those three options. I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, but I'll mention it while we're here. It's not just two options. I feel like people often think of it can go up or it can go down. Well, sure, if you count the pennies, but in the vast scheme of things, they can also go sideways. And sometimes for a very long time it can go sideways. So keep in mind that there's a third move that can happen, the sideways move. And that's actually the one that I prefer. Get yourself in the mid-range, stay right around it, and start to trigger on the TTM squeeze indicator. So we'll see if there's anything like that setting up or not. All right, folks, I hope that your trading week is off to a good start. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.